Hi folks, I'm just sharing my screen, so hopefully that'll come up in a second. I am Darren Brown, PT of IT, but mainly a full-time computing science teacher at Inverness High School. Hopefully you can all see that. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the primary training and resources that I made and ran last year. I was doing Google Meet training across Highland, the area size of Belgium last year before it was cool, before everybody had to do it. I've obviously spent years developing my own BGE National 5 a few times, higher a few times. A few years back, we did a bit of primary stuff and really just tried to get Scratch games and stuff going. But then we had to rewrite quite a lot of our national courses again, so we can put that on the back burner. And then we went back to offering a bit of primary stuff last year. So I'm going to be able to give you all access to this Google Shared Drive. As long as you've got a Google account, you are going to have to email me if you want access, and bear with me while I probably take a few days to kind of get through putting everybody in. But we had this idea for calling it computing science for anyone and everyone. The idea is we were pushing it to all ages, early years, all the way through primary. We had quite a few non-computing secondary teachers in some schools who were teaching computing, which is always great. So we tried to kind of put a good bit of coverage, and we ran 4 or 5 sessions. We didn't really push it too hard. We basically said, look, we're offering some computing science stuff. We tried to kind of sell it under the DYW and how important that is, developing the young workforce and the jobs in computing and things like that. We sold it heavily on numeracy, obviously, a bit of literacy, growth mindset, computational thinking, problem solving, creativity, digital learning, theory and practical. We also sold it on the fact that we would try and kind of simplify and show them the E's and O's and things that were there. So there is a shared drive and they had access to all of this. It started off with me and a few others doing quite a bit of legwork. And what we did was we took the E's and O's and the benchmarks, and we tried to kind of outline, along with the fantastic guides from CAS for secondary and primary, tried to kind of outline all the kind of different ideas we had for covering the different outcomes. Now, I wouldn't expect you to sit and have a look through this, but if you're in the folder and you want to look, you can see. And we also added lots of extra ideas in. Now, obviously, even for me, that's too much to give to a computing science teacher. So what we attempted to do to start off was to summarize that into just a slide for computing science E's and O's per level. So we tried to actually not only just kind of summarize it, but also give them really direct links. The idea is that we're doing all the legwork, and we're trying to simplify it as much as possible and not kind of overawe, trying to get people into doing some computing science. So each level we have things that we mainly recommend, code.org at the younger years. We did a session on barefoot because they quite like signing up and getting lesson packs for various things. And we did that for the first level and second level, where we started talking about Scratch more. We did 2 sessions on Scratch. We did end up with over 125 different colleagues across the whole of Highland, from early years, primary 1 to 7 and S1 to 3. We've got second level as well, and we've got stuff here. So we've tried to kind of make it as easy as possible. You know, I know people's time is short and the time they've got to teach curriculum. I've got a lot of respect for our primary colleagues, and they have that whole plastic laminated folder that fill my nightmares of like hundreds of E's and O's and benchmarks to try and cover. So we tried to really push that. I mean, for me, I think we need more of a pipeline of people coming through with digital and computing. I mean, I'm talking about how difficult it is to get quite a lot of kids to National 5 level. So I think we need to start in primary. I think things like the gender imbalance, I think the earlier we start and the earlier we let people experience coding on these great free systems and stuff, the more people will come through into so many jobs. I mean, I do find it quite funny that as the unofficial ranter for Highland Council, you know, I'm still having to fight with people to say, you know, computing science should be high up there on the list for stuff we need to do. As I said, everybody got access to this folder, and you can email me later if you want access, and we kind of put everything in there. We did a session, first of all, on code.org. For me, I'm trying to keep it simple and not show them too much stuff that's flashy. I just want to show them the most simple thing ever. For most sessions, we had simple instruction sheets as well. So for code.org here, we basically summarized the basics of code.org and kind of took people through it. Intro videos. I think one of the big things we did was we tried to say to people, you can get kids on this in a couple of minutes. If they go to code.org and they go to Our Code, They can, there's lots of different sessions. You can do this once a week for a little session, and they can be in there and they can be starting any of these kind of tasks pretty quickly. You know, after that, once we kind of capture them with the idea that it's not as scary as you think, we then attempted to kind of show them other things. So again, short videos, but we showed them that you could set up a class and copy and paste in your class, set them a course, and you could track them on them going through the tasks and their efficiency and stuff like that. Unplugged lessons that they can print off packs, stuff like that, and kind of try to put across the idea that, you know, they can actually have assessment built in as well, which I think was quite big for quite a few of them. We did a session on barefoot as well, like I said. But barefoot, again, we kind of talked to them about the fact that there's lots of lesson packs and there's things they can download. Quite a lot of them have tablets, so they've got things like Scratch Junior. There's quite a few of them have floor robots like Bebots, and again, they quite like the computational thinking. So we have information sheets and some tour videos of this, just showing them around barefoot and how to find stuff, and they can search in Scotland and different levels. A lot of the teachers really liked the barefoot stuff because it had computational thinking, unplugged lessons, but it also had like explanations for them. There was quite a lot of kind of, here's the basic terms of computing, and there's various things in there. So we took them through stuff and we tried to give them time in the sessions to have a play around with it themselves. I think that's important. And they could always watch the various things that were there. We did 2 sessions on Scratch. The reason we did 2 sessions on Scratch was one of them was just an introduction. So the first one, we really just showed them that, again, within seconds, without an account, you can go into the ideas area of Scratch, and that you can literally do various tutorials that have inbuilt tutorials within the actual tasks. So we basically showed them that, again, within a couple of minutes, you can have kids on this playing around with it on these great free systems, which they quite enjoyed as well. I always try to tie what I'm doing with things I've actually done. So things I've tried in primary schools over the years and worked with colleagues and stuff. So I always try to like talk the talk. I want to say to them, look, here's the lessons that I do. And I would give them access to all my kind of resources and what we do when we do Scratch. And there's files and there's like learning intentions and all that kind of stuff in there. Again, it's just as quick as possible. Everything's kind of pre-made for them. And they can see everything that they need to see. Videos, again, we've got information about Scratch that they can use. Again, once they've had a play around with it, we've got lots of game starters. So we've said, look, you could just print these off and give them to kids and let them try some games, let them try kind of putting in some games and then experimenting and remixing these games themselves to see what they can do. Some of the activities cards from Scratch are great. So again, they can even print them off in PDF, and there's hundreds of little mini tasks that take them through what they're doing. The 4th session, I tried to focus on the materials that I'd actually made. So the materials I had made were related to the 2nd level outcomes. I tried to kind of look at the outcomes, and I tried to kind of build what I thought we'd cover, the theory, the practical. Again, linking to all these things above, numeracy quite a lot, you know, creativity, play's a big thing. It should be a big thing throughout all the primary and even early secondary, and kind of honing in on that. So there's different kind of materials and stuff there. They're all built in mainly Google as electronic worksheets, because that's how we deliver them in Highland. All of our P6s to S6s have Chromebooks. So we deliver most of our lessons electronically and our materials electronically. So the worksheets are all built in, and what we encourage is them, you know, linking to videos and things like that, but also they can tick off checklists. And we do this all the way up to higher, but we encourage that we take screenshots of what they've produced so that all their work and things like that are in the one place. Some of them, there's a bit more theory based, so we do try and introduce some of the concepts a bit more. And we have electronic worksheets that have questions. They type in their answers as well as taking screenshots of their code and their test runs, and they type everything in there. And a big deal about creativity, there's some of these tasks that we try and actually things like that are a bit more advanced, kind of like programming tasks, like creating a calculator, but also making an animation or creating a song and a dance, things that can kind of expand a bit more. So again, we've tried to say to them, look, we're going to help you cover the outcomes. We're going to try and help you build all these things. There is a teacher information sheet, which is quite long, but a lot of teachers asked for just some basic help. So per lesson, you know, you wouldn't have to read the whole thing, but they can go in per lesson, and it introduces the concepts to them. because I know teachers like to think, well, I kind of need to know the background to this first, or it gives them good ideas for real world discussions or questions you could ask your class or common misconceptions that might come up, even answers for the typed things and screenshots and kind of examples of code. So each lesson, if they need it, they can actually go in and look at the kind of instructions or the kind of background for the lessons to help them kind of deliver that. And the encouragement is to kind of get them to do more of that kind of stuff. I think in a perfect world, I've kind of talked to them about the fact that I would say about 80% of the stuff I do in Scratch, I would quite like to be done like P5 to 7, and then I can maybe focus a bit more on the understanding the code and a bit more advanced stuff in S1 and Scratch, and then maybe move on to Python in S2. So people are always like, well, I don't want to use stuff that you're going to do in first year. And I'm like, I'm quite delighted if you do that. I do think really building computing up through the various kind of levels is the only way to keep growing it. I mean, I do really hope that the government properly fund and support trying to bring in computing. I mean, there's a lot of talk about DIY and new business. I mean, it's not just current jobs and future jobs, it's also new business in the economy. I mean, we all know this, we're all kind of saying this on a daily basis, but I think the digital creativity stuff as well kind of fits in quite well. If you want access, you just need to email me. My email address, and we'll put it in the chat, is darren.brown@highland.gov.uk, but just bear with me. It has to be a Google account. I know some of the Glow accounts are a little bit weird. I am also the curator of the Highland shared drive, which you might have access to or you might have heard of, because I've got lots of e-materials and we've got various schools in Highland who've shared stuff similar for National 5 and higher. Like we've got like e-chapters and e-textbooks and Google Forms self-marking quizzes and homeworks and stuff. So if you want access to that, you just ask me as well. But as I said, if you just bear with me, I think I've done okay staying under the time, so I might be allowed to speak for 10 minutes the kind of next time. And I'll be around later on if people want to ask me stuff. But sorry, it was a kind of real quick look through. There's other stuff in there that kind of maybe suits BGE better, and other stuff that we've tried to do and introduce, and we would quite like to do more sessions, but it's a bit strange, as everybody knows at the moment. So thank you.